when I say that it's like a deck building game, it is that aspect, because we're building a deck with different valuations and colors and schemes like that. But it's also kind of a puzzle game, because then it's about how you use these to get the best value out of those cards. Alex, I've heard that you might not like deck building mechanics.
Not typically in video games. I have not encountered one that I really vibed with.
Is it mostly the kind of mechanics where you have to build a deck and then battle somebody who also has a deck of cards, and you have to, like Gwent, that kind of a thing?
Yeah, I did not enjoy Gwent. Usually it's the game itself that the mechanics are representing that I don't like, I guess.
Okay.
Deck builders tend to have an interesting way that they're like not just card games. Like, I've played Hearthstone.
Okay, yeah. Have you played...
I didn't play it much, but...
Did you ever play Slay the Spire? Because that also kind of has deck building mechanics built in, but... Yeah.
I've not.
Yeah. Slay the Spire is one of those games where they will have an ever-evolving deck of cards that you can remove cards from, get cards, and you use that as your battle system, essentially. And so some people gel with that, some people don't, but I have a feeling you probably wouldn't like it so much.
Yeah, I mean, again, we both played Magic the Gathering pretty extensively.
Yes.
In that one, it's you get the cards and you build the deck, and then it's random chance what you get, but you can control how many of each card in your deck, and then...
Yeah.
You know, a lot of stuff in there. And a lot of, I think, card battlers don't quite have the nuance that, like, a game like Magic would have.
Sure.
So it's like, yes, you get random cards, but it's like, okay, but I don't like any of these cards, and I want to build a better deck. I need way more options.
Right. Baten Kaitos also had a battle system that was entirely deck-based like that, so you would get randomized card deals from your deck of cards. Like, I think that there's a few different types. There's the ones that use the card battles as the actual combat system. There are ones that are the actual card battling game, similar to a Magic the Gathering. But recently I was playing a game called I Was a Teenage Exocolonist, and that uses a card mechanic in a very different way than I have seen previously. And I wanted to talk a little bit about it. For those of you who are not familiar with the game, I Was a Teenage Alex is one of them. I Was a Teenage Exocolonist is sort of a narrative game about you growing up from the time you're like 13 through the time you're 19, on an exoplanetary colony that's trying to survive on the outskirts. And so you meet a bunch of different characters, you build relationships with them, you go out and explore, you do a lot of things over the course of that time, and you can kind of decide what you want to focus on and what you want to get better at every day, and who you want to interact with, etc. There is a little bit of a almost a cozy game kind of thing where you learn about people's birthdays and give them gifts and raise up their...
Side note, I don't like those mechanics in games. I don't give a shit about your birthday.
I don't always interact with those, especially if on multiple playthroughs, to be honest with you. But and I usually did it completely by accident. But the thing that is interesting about this is that it does indeed have a card deck-based resolution system. I don't say a combat system, but it's a resolution system for things. So there are 3 types of interaction or encounter in the game. You have a mental, a social, and a physical. And there are a few different stats involved in all of those that give you bonuses throughout the game. But they're color-coded, so you have red for physical, you have blue for mental, you have yellow for social interactions. And the way the game works is that you will occasionally come across a challenge. You're in a social encounter, or you have to deal with this
That's
animal.
the challenge.
Yeah, or there's a wild creature and you gotta like wrangle it, or you gotta like fight it off. You gotta do a debate. You gotta learn how to bake or whatever it is. And what happens is that you will get cards from the deck that you have built. The deck, though, is completely based on the experiences that you have had. So, growing up and, like, seeing a scenic vista ends up being a card, because this was, like, inspirational for you. Traumatic things that happen, or where you lose your temper, that becomes an actual card in the game, with, like, evaluation and special stats and abilities, etc. The idea of the resolution is that you have to hit a target number, and you have to use the cards that you've been given in your hand in order to reach that target number. And so they're organized by color, so you can get flushes of the cards that you put together. They also give you credit for having the same number in the row, like 2 of a kind, 3 of a kind, in this box of like 5 cards that you can put out. Or you can do it by runs. So, like, if you have a card that's a 1, and a 2, and a 3, and a 4, you get bonus points for those as well. And then the individual cards also have some interesting abilities. Like, if the card to the left or the right is a certain color, or it's the only one of its type, there are bonuses to it, or there are detractions from it. But basically, the idea is that you get your cards in your hand, you have certain slots, and you have to figure out how you can arrange them and move them around to see if you can reach the target number, or even the super number above it if you are lucky, so that you can get bonuses. And then if you succeed, you could get a card that could be very useful to you in the future. If you rest and get rid of your stress, because there's a stress meter in the game, if you get rid of your stress, you can also choose one of 2 random cards to forget if you want, to eliminate some ideas from your deck, or eliminate memories, essentially, from your past. And so this is the way the entire game pretty much runs, with every kind of challenge that you take on. Constantly learning about the world, or, getting knowledge that become cards that you can use in the deck, or letting go of certain ones in order to build your deck. And then it's completely random what, 6 cards are going to be presented to you in order to do it. The bigger challenges in the game give you 3 different rounds, where they start you off with 3 cards, and then 4, and then 5. Sometimes they'll even throw in a little bit of a monkey wrench, where one of those card slots automatically becomes like the value 3, or automatically becomes blue. And so then you have to kind of figure out your runs around that. When I say that it's like a deck building game, it is that aspect, because we're building a deck with different valuations and colors and schemes like that. But it's also kind of a puzzle game, because then it's about how you use these to get the best value out of those cards in order to hit your target number and succeed. Because you could also fail, especially with very difficult ones. It's easy to do. There's some really dangerous encounters where they ask you to get a score of 90. You have to start using some extra items and things to pump up numbers in order to make that happen. In some ways, I feel like this is an RPG kind of mechanic, because it is very much based on how you develop your character, what you want to focus on. You can't be good at everything, so you have to figure out what you want to concentrate on. And then utilizing those experiences as actual cards, thoughts, experiences for your character in the game. So it's a very personal kind of thing. So you're actually playing your role. But it does have a lot of randomness to it, because you could have a deck of cards that's probably 100 cards, 50, maybe 100 cards, and they'll throw out 6, in a given span of time. So I found it kind of interesting that this was the way that they wanted to implement this kind of system, because it is very different than the way I normally think of card battling games or card mechanics.
It's also, like, I think it's a neat RPG mechanic,
yeah.
for sure, but it's also a weird one because mechanically, yeah, that's interesting, but when you think about it a little bit more as you're role-playing a character, it kind of gets into the, like, schizo kind of. You're not in control of your emotions or your feelings or your actions. They are dictated by random will.
Right. I kind of conceptualize it as these are the experiences that you had, and we are now going to utilize some of them that come to mind immediately when the challenge comes up. And those are what I have to work with, based on the knowledge and the experience that I've had. This is the part that I have to access.
It's like maybe something comes up, and it's something that you as a person, and you feel like your character should be really excited about, for instance. I don't know if that's a card, doesn't matter. But what if, like, the entire hand you get dealt is, like, anger?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, this does not feel like the appropriate response for my character. Why am I angry at something that quite, like, should be moving or, like, beautiful kind of deal? It's like,
right.
That's not, that would be one of those things where if you were playing an RPG with someone and you went, look at this beautiful thing, and someone, man, this makes me so angry. You'd look at them and go, you got a vendetta with this or what, dude?
Yeah, like, is there a part of this backstory that I am not aware of? Because
so it's like,
yeah. I mean, the thing about it is that I won't give away much about, like, what happens in the game. But I can tell you that, like, there's a lot of heavy stuff in the game. The things that you do influence that greatly, right down to whether you're going to be like a rebel or if you're going to, like, uphold order, you know, like who you're friends with, and, you know, decisions that you make definitely have ramifications down the road. One thing that I think helps out a little bit with this is that, like I said, there's different kinds of encounters. And so if you're in a social encounter or you're in a physical encounter, you're going to have bonuses to it if you're already good at certain things in that realm. Because there are actual stats that go along with that. Like, there is, like, a combat stat in your physical realm. There's also, like, knowledge-based things, like about biology, about perception. And so if you're on challenges like that and you're really good at it, it will help you out. Like, there are bonuses that you might get for those challenges or that you can utilize in certain ways. So that helps out. You also have the ability to equip certain things that make you better at certain kinds of challenges if you want to focus on those. There is that, but I do understand what you're saying about, you know, the random access emotion, essentially, that you're getting into with what you have in front of you. I think what I found interesting is that you're going to have that kind of randomization in any kind of a deck building game. I've played enough of them to know that, but what I think is interesting here is how it's utilized, and that they try to utilize it based on the story of the character that you're building as time goes on. That was a really interesting aspect that I have not seen before with those kinds of mechanics. Utilizing the actual story of the character as the mechanism by which we get a deck of cards together. So that by the end, it really is about the experience that you had going in that lead you to the end. But anyway, I wanted to just talk about that, really just briefly on the show, because after playing a lot of different card games in real life, and also throughout, like, playing Baten Kaitos and Tattered Scroll and all of those, I thought that this was implemented in a really interesting way, where I wasn't really battling somebody. I was really just trying to hit a target number based on the difficulty rating. almost like in D&D where I roll a die, and I have to hit a target challenge number, challenge rating, essentially. And if I do, great, and if I don't, I don't. They kind of made that, but they made it in a deck version. So, I am, however, guessing that I'm not going to sell you on a game like this, probably, for yourself.
Not.
No, it's not
But
your
maybe
cup of tea.
someone, but maybe someone listening, someone watching.
For anyone who's interested, if you do look it up, there is actually a demo, which takes you through the first year of your character, so you can see the mechanics up close.
There you go.
So you can try it out and see if you like it. But yeah, I was a Teenage Exocolonist. Interesting way of progression and deck building mechanics. If you know of any other interesting utilizations of those mechanics, you can let us know in the comments down below. Be aware, I have probably played many different iterations of those. So if you have any thoughts, though, about games like Baten Kaitos or Slay the Spire, tell me what you thought, because I've always had mixed feelings on those in terms of the mechanics and the way that it's laid out. But at any rate, you let us know in the comments down below.